in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought?
All right, welcome everybody. This is Doug Crow, your humble and arrogant host. It can't be both those things. It's one of those things. For our live stream today. And this live stream is very, very near and dear to my heart because I don't have to memorize anybody's bio because it's the same guy. He just has his twins here. Welcome to our show, the two Jeffs. We have Jeff Standridge and Jeff Amerine.
Amerine. You were close. Good enough.
Amerine. What nationality is that, Jeff?
Well, listen. It actually stands for Am Rhine, and the people were not real smart. A couple hundred years ago, there are people that live near the Rhine River, Germany and Switzerland. So Am Rhine. But my wife likes Amerine. She thinks it sounds cooler and more exotic.
Amerine, yeah.
And then when I try to call you from my voice command in my truck, I have to say it like that in order for it to actually call you.
Yeah, El Jefe Amerine sounds like I should be running a drug cartel somewhere.
Yeah, no, I watched Inglourious Basterds again the other day. I love the Italian accent there. Arrivederci, right? So we have Amerine. Works.
Very good.
Very good. But we're not here to talk about movies or your beautiful last name. I want to talk about something very important, which is your amazing upcoming book. Actually, it's launching today. And before we get into your book and all the benefits, I want to hear about 30 seconds a minute about you two guys. So go ahead and tell the audience about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a serial entrepreneur by affliction, I guess. 9 tech startups over a long career, 3 Fortune 500s, some time in university tech commercialization, and the last 13 years running the Startup Junkie Enterprise, which is an entrepreneurial support organization. Also an active investor, but a lot of life experience. Some people would say it's a clear case of undiagnosed attention deficit, but there you have it. That's me.
All right. And I've known you a bunch of books here.
Yeah, so I come to the world of entrepreneurship and innovation from the world of what I call entrepreneurship and change, being a change agent. So I worked in the same corporate organization for almost 20 years, was hired there as a change agent consultant, got into entrepreneurship, which is defined effectively as doing entrepreneurial things, but with the safety net of a corporate salary. Mostly what I was risking was my reputation, right? And so I had the opportunity to start and acquire and lead companies on 5 continents, 21 different company acquisitions in Europe, started a ground-up operation in Gdańsk, Poland, started a ground-up operation in Nantong, China, and then acquired a multi-location operation in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and then in Porto Alegre and Sao Paulo, Brazil. And so about 4 years ago, almost 4.5 years ago, even before that, started co-investing with Jeff Amerine through a couple of different funds, and a fund he had, a fund I had, and some other funds. And then about 4.5 years ago, retired from my corporate gig and launched effectively another division of Startup Junkie Consulting, which Jeff leads and has for 13 or so years. I started The Conductor, which is same team, same organization, just in a location about 2 hours away.
Wow. Okay. So, folks, you want to pay attention, because if anyone needs to find out about starting up an operation or maybe M&A work, want to buy something or sell something, these are the guys to listen to. So I want to talk to you today about your new book. You have a copy of it there? You got one?
Sure do. Yep.
Show them a picture of that. Look at that. We both have one. Look at that. Creating Startup Junkies. So you guys are basically drug dealers for startups. You want to create more junkies.
Yeah.
To be addicted to the starting thing. What about finishing?
Well, finaishing's important too. But it's anything good starts with that creative spark that gets something off the ground.
And that's where we spend.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say that's where we spend our time today, is inspiring and empowering entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, innovators, and makers to really foster that creative spark and help them start their companies and help them scale their companies.
Right. I had some friends in the West, in the left coast, in the Silicon Valley, and I was really intrigued when Jeff first told me. I can say Jeff won. When Jeff won first told me about your title about being, startups in was it Uncommon Places?
Unexpected places.
Unexpected places. Yeah.
I'm like, yes, we definitely need that, because my friend that was over on the left coast in the Silicon Valley for those 2 decades, it basically they basically destroyed his soul. He was like actually trying to do the good things for good people. It's like, no, it's about who you know and who you can screw. So I'm very interested to know about you've got like a Midwestern twang here, Jeff one. Jeff Amerine, where are you from?
I was actually a military dependent, military brat, so all over the place. I've lived all over the country and the world. So you're not going to pick up as much Ozarkian from me, but if you need me to turn that on, I can.
No, it's good. We got Standridge for that. Like, you can put on any accent you want, Well, what about this different places? I made fun of Silicon Valley. What about you guys? You obviously are all over the place. What's the essence of the book Startup Junkies, and how does it apply to being not in Silicon Valley, I guess?
Well, the whole idea behind that is it's possible to build incredible new companies, not in the places that we all associate with the startup scene. So not in Silicon Valley, not in New York, not in Boston. And how is it possible? Well, it's possible because we proved it over the course of the last 13 years that it was possible. And there's some unique elements from people in the center of the country that have really strong work ethic, that are kind of steeped in fundamental economics of treating their customers right and understanding how to build a successful business. And we kind of captured that. And part of the reason why we did was because it's a very strong play for economic development. If you can build something locally rather than recruit something in, it's going to stick, and there's going to be economic vitality that will follow.
This all makes total sense. From everything you said is logical. You can't argue with it. It makes total sense. And my guess, and if I'm wrong, please tell me, is that like a lot of the startup money doesn't see this. They just go to the shiny objects out west or out east, right?
Historically, I mean, density does matter, but you're right. Historically, it's been on either coast.
Well, and it's one of the reasons that Jeff and I also started Cadron Capital Partners and some of the other investment we've done. There are bargains to be had here as well. Yeah, the density of money is going to the coast, but the valuations are going with it, right? And we think that there's some really good opportunities here, and have invested in some good opportunities here in the heartland, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so take me down an example of one startup that would be, unexpected or slightly surprising, and people go, "Wow, I want to find out more about that."
Well, Walmart's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Come on, that we don't know about.
Yeah, I got you. There's so many that we could talk about, but I'll give you one example that's kind of top of mind that's based here, and it's kind of a cool story because it fits in with agriculture and farming and all that. Acre Trader. Acre Trader is a platform started by a guy that was from Arkansas that also ran $1 billion fund on the West Coast. He came back here and he said, you know what? People have been buying and selling productive farmland the same way probably since the founding fathers. Why can't we make that an asset class where you can fractionalize it like a condo, and people can buy a fraction of a productive farm and get both operating revenue and capital appreciation associated with it? So he's built this platform called Acre Trader, based right here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, that's really disrupting that asset class. That's one example.
Okay, hold on. So I want to know more about this. Is the land like privately held small farms, or the big ones, or who's putting their land out here?
It's typically pretty good sized farms. And so what they'll do is maybe it's a family-owned farm, or maybe it's a corporate-owned farm, but they want to bring some additional liquidity to what they're doing. So they'll sell a portion of the interest, or they might sell the whole thing outright. But yeah, these are productive farms. Some of them have wind farms on them in addition to row crops, almond tree farms in California. I mean, it's everything that you can imagine. And a lot of times, if you were to go to Southeast Arkansas, there's one guy for 50 years that is the guy you got to go to if you want to buy or sell anything in a particular area. Now there's a platform where people from all over the country, if they want to have Mississippi Delta farm interests, they can do it easily and simply. So that's an example of one that's local.
And if they want to do it with a $10,000 investment or a $100,000 investment, they have that platform by which to do that.
Wow. Are they you said the segmented, so you could buy, if someone set up their own individual group of, like, I want some almonds, some cotton, some wind, and put it together, or is it just shares of anything?
You buy it per transaction. So when you're one of their investors or one of their interested investors, and they find a new piece of ground, they will create an LLC and do a raise for that particular investment.
All right.
And so, I
think my idea just now is a really good one, because if we have like, a drought somewhere, but if you pull together, 1,000 shares in different crops, you could mitigate your, danger, right?
Yeah.
Just a thought.
So that's one
the shares there, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's just one example. I mean, there's plenty of them like that. I mean, another one that's grown up in this area that has been really instrumental in making sure that banks are ready for the CARES Act and the PPP is a company called Teslar, not to be confused with Tesla, and it's like a banking ERP software company. They've been around for a little while. They're a world-class fintech company, financial technology company right here in Arkansas. And the guy that leads it grew up in banking, but he also has a degree in computer science and computer engineering. And so he's got kind of a unique advantage for addressing those sorts of solutions that really make banks more productive.
Banker's Choice Award in 2019 for the Community Bank Association, and Finovate Award, Financial Innovation Award for 2020. Scrappy entrepreneur, companies growing 80 to 90% per year, and I spend quite a bit of time with the entrepreneur there. They're doing great work.
Huh. Okay. And just give me a little more detail. I'm just curious about. Was it just as an online bank, or what is it? What do they do?
No, what they've done basically is they've assessed the core systems, the 2 or 3 core systems that most banks use, and they found the gaps in capability and automated those gaps and positioned themselves as a bolt-on to those 3 core systems.
Okay.
So you've got for instance, global cash flow or construction loan draws that loan officers are still doing on a spreadsheet or a back of a napkin, right? And so they've automated those processes and integrated them with the core systems as well. So Teslar, TESLAR software.
All right, check it out, folks. Could be a good one.
Those are 2 examples of 1,000 that we deal with a year. I mean, the interaction that our organization has is we probably have 1,000 client engagement meetings, one-on-one mentoring meetings every year. We could talk for hours and hours of the businesses that are growing up or that have moved here that we're helping grow that are across the spectrum. We've got companies that are dealing with high temperature, high power electronics, stuff that's going out into space. We've got kind of basic mom and pop restaurants and everything in between. It's very vibrant small business and startup scene.
So tell me more about how this relates to the book now. The book is titled Creating Startup Junkies. Is this a how-to manual how to become a junkie for startups, or how to get involved with funds, or what?
Well, yes, and I mean it's kind of a model that's a book that's intended to give both the inspiration and the toolkit that if you're in a chamber of commerce, or if you're in a institutional higher learning, or if you're a city mayor, or if you're in anything associated with economic development, or you're a successful entrepreneur and you want to create something that's vibrant, that is going to be lots of new business starts, this is a template for how to do it. And it's 4 fundamental pillars we talk about: talent, creating and securing capital, entrepreneurial culture, and then community engagement. The whole premise is, how do you assess where you are on those 4 pillars? And then how do you take action to move that entrepreneurial ecosystem forward?
So if you take a look at the 2 examples that we represent, 13 years ago, Jeff started this in the Northwest Arkansas area, 20 or 30 miles removed from the Walmart headquarters there in Fayetteville, and created Startup Junkie. And then about 7 or 8 years later, we took that model. So the metro area where Jeff Amerine and his original team are, it's the 2nd metro area of the state. The first being obviously the Little Rock capital city metro area, and then of course the Northwest Arkansas metro area. We took that model, and using the assessment mechanism that we've created in the book called the Venture Ecosystem Building Canvas, Jeff and his team partnered with a university and did a 7 or 8 month assessment of our area. What are the assets that we have? What are the talent assets? What are the human capital assets? What are the financial assets? What are the technology assets? And then we took that model and created the Conductor, which is kind of a right-sized clone relative to our assets, and launched it in 2016 in a community of 65,000. Right. So So we now have 2 examples, and increasingly we're being called on to communicate and consult with other communities that are looking to try to do the same thing.
So if I'm a Chamber of Commerce or a business development person in Detroit, I might want to buy your book.
Of course.
Absolutely. Or if you're in, the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, in a place that's got 75,000 people, and you want to figure out, could we do something like that here? You can. And that's what we've, that's kind of what we've proven. Our model is very much like, if you were to take a McKinsey consulting operation and combine it with an event management company and say, the point is we want to have lots of new starts, we want to have vibrance, we want to have a greater survival rate of early stage business, we provide that kind of template. And as an entrepreneurial support organization, the business model is unique in that we're third party funded. We don't charge our clients anything.
What?
The startups, not a cent. We're funded by the federal government, the state government, foundations, universities. And the reason why is because there's measurable outputs and outcomes that show that economic vitality in terms of new ventures, jobs created, patents created, all the kind of stuff you would typically measure can happen if you use this kind of model.
Wow.
And entrepreneurs, below about $10 million in annualized revenue generally don't have the capital to spend on $500 an hour consultants, right? And so we find those institutions, organizations, NGOs, and others who have a vested interest in fostering and nurturing economic development and new starts and new creations, or the commercialization of technology, and partner with them to fund these experienced consultants who can then come in and sit down and provide coaching, consulting, mentoring, technical assistance, training, et cetera, for these entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs and inventors.
All right, so you guys in Arkansas, where's the next hot place? Where should people go if they're gonna move?
Arkansas.
It's a good place. There's lots of good places in the center of the U.S. The thing that's pretty attractive about where we are in Arkansas is it's a affordable cost of living, great quality of life, a lot of outdoor amenities, increasing cultural scene, and so you can just live a great life here and have a lot of the metropolitan amenities that you would typically associate with a bigger place, and also be 5 minutes from world-class soft surface trail for your mountain bike. And there's lots of places like that in the center of the U.S. and people are nice and welcoming.
Yeah,
not a lot of sharp elbows and cutthroat players down here.
I've seen Jeff's fake posts on Instagram with all his bike stuff on there. It's like, and you can look at mine, Jeff. I rode the same trail in Charleston for about 8 months during COVID. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bored of this trail. Looking for something new. And I took my bike into like the mountain trail area, but Charleston's a swamp, right? So it's all mud. I hated it. I mean, actual mountain. So.
I'm scared of mountain biking. I'm afraid I'd kill myself, so I do road and gravel. So
that's much better. All right. So other than going to Arkansas, which maybe some people appeal to them, maybe not. Let's talk about the right now situation, 2021 now, with the remote world that we live in. Is there a new blueprint or an adjustment to the blueprint of creating these ecosystems with a remote world?
I actually think it's a yes and scenario. So as an example, there's plenty of places that have said you can keep your ties to whatever operation you're involved with in Silicon Valley or New York, but live 30 minutes from Moab in Utah, or live in a nice college town somewhere. Or the Canadians have got it right. They're really advocating for Nova Scotia, beautiful area up there, Cape Breton and the Main of Nova Scotia, very remote, not that heavily populated, nice amenities. So the digital world and high-speed broadband access have democratized everything that we do, to where if you're in a high-skilled, high-tech type of job, you can be anywhere. Now, for places like us, we want it to be yes and. Sure, keep your ties to those major metros, come here and do some things, but while you're here, build something interesting as well beyond that. So the idea of being a bedroom community is dead. Everywhere is a bedroom community and a remote work community at this point.
Right. Well, and it does also issue a compelling call to action for communities like mine, is that yes, we could capture some of those folks who are looking to live in a higher quality of place location, but we could also lose the ones we have if we don't ensure that we are focused on quality of place, right? That we're building those amenities, that we're building those outdoor opportunities, that we're creating a cool entrepreneurial look and feel downtown culture, et cetera.
Yeah. What's the biggest challenge you guys have seen when people take a look at this formula, this blueprint? What are they saying that's holding them back from doing it?
Let me take a stab at that, Jeff, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I will tell you, any group that I speak with about doing what we've done in unexpected places is there are really two things: convene a group of committed change agents and get them all to achieve consensus on what is needed as the first starting point. And don't start with a building, or start where you are is what I usually say. And what I have found is in some communities, you've got some people who believe you need a cool co-working space, and other people believe you need entrepreneurial programming, and other people believe you need a maker capability. And so, start where you are, get a group of committed change agents together, gain consensus, and then build a plan to start working from there. If you start with a building, then what I have seen is you spend 80% of your time trying to fundraise to keep the lights on, and 20% of your time doing what you actually set out to do, which is inspire and empower entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You get that coalition of the willing, and you build community through a regular cadence of events and activities. And as they coalesce, then you'll know when it's the right time to put infrastructure in place, a building. Running events and that sort of stuff, particularly today, a lot of them can be virtual. That's cheap in comparison to millions of dollars on a building. The other challenge is you have to have somebody that is going to be a key champion or leader to run the organization. You can't kind of parachute in where it's like, well, here are the consultants with the briefcases and the nice suits, and they're going to do it. You got to take our template, and then there has to be somebody there that's going to be the key person to lead it. So, for example, we wouldn't have been successful in moving from Northwest Arkansas to Conway if it hadn't been for Jeff Standridge. He had all the connections. He was well respected. He was the right guy to build the base of activity around. That's really important as well.
All right. So you got to find your linchpin there, your
exactly.
main person there. Okay. All right. If I'm talking about a young entrepreneur, someone just getting started out, has this much, networking established, whatnot, where would they start? What's the first thing they should do?
I would say they need to make sure if they're wanting to start a company, I would tell them what we tell all of our entrepreneurs is they need to make sure that the company they're going to start has a product or a service that fits the market, that there is a market need and people are willing to pay for the problem that they're trying to solve. 35-40% of all new startups and subsequently all new products fail because there are not enough people are willing to buy the product or the service at a price point required to create a profitable ongoing concern. So they're not solving a big enough problem. So we have our entrepreneurs spend a lot of time doing customer discovery to ensure a problem solution fit and then product market fit.
Product market fit. That's beautiful. Yeah, one of my friends wrote a book on that. It's brilliant about the innovators formula. Kind of like yours, not a blueprint like yours, but it was more of a in-depth thing. Your book on innovation. What was the title of the last book, Jeff?
The Innovators Field Guide. That's right.
Yeah, that was really good. All right. Man, that's good stuff. Okay, so a new person, get the education, get started. What about somebody who just is ready to bail, want to exit and sell and whatnot? Is there any values we could help them out with?
Yeah, you're talking about somebody that's at a point where they built something and they want to figure out how to exit. Yeah, this is the type of thing where it's always good to start with the end in mind, so that when you get to that end point, you're not ready for it. So a good bit of advice we give is always build a business like you might sell it someday, which means you've got to have good documentation and good process, and you've got a good succession plan. And if as an entrepreneurial leader, you figured out how to work yourself out of your own job by having an echelon of folks that work for you that could run the business without you, you're going to be in a position to sell it when the time comes. Right. And so we advise a lot of companies to say, if you're really thinking about an exit, this is all the stuff that you need to be prepared for. So that there's real value there and you've got something to sell when the time comes.
A lot of solo entrepreneurs don't create a business, they create a job for themselves, right? And if they take 3 days of vacation, then there's 3 days of no income coming in. Right. And to Jeff's point, build that sustainable, scalable model where you're not in the day-to-day details. I believe it was Michael Gerber, who said, how much time do you spend working on your business versus working in your business?
That's right.
And we've eaten our own dog food on that deal. So I mean, Jeff and I are the senior people in the organization. Jeff and I and Brett, who's our kind of acts as our COO and CFO. If the three of us weren't there, the organization would still run. Everybody here is empowered and self-propelled. They know exactly what they need to do. We're here to remove the obstacles and to maybe do some outward-facing stuff, but the organization could continue without us. Every business needs to, as an entrepreneurial leader, needs to set itself up to operate that way.
Back to that, you mentioned that 34% of startups fail because they don't have the product market fit, and I read something about a month ago that 90% of businesses who try to sell don't. They just close their doors, and it might be because of the things that they didn't set themselves up for properly. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're just too small to attract money.
I've seen numerous examples of where somebody believes that they don't have a retirement. They believe they're going to sell their business for $3 million and it's going to be their retirement. But when you pluck them out of it, it's not worth $300,000. And so I sat here in this office, and I believe there's a huge opportunity with this impending, silver tsunami of 10,000 people a day turning 65. That there are all of these small family-owned businesses that don't have a succession candidate. And I sat here with an HVAC guy who wanted to sell his company to two of his lieutenants. One had been there 8 years, one had been there 13 years. They'd already agreed on price, they'd already agreed on terms, but his CPA wouldn't help him because he felt very strongly that these guys ought to put some money in the game to start with, ought to have some skin in the game. And he said, they've got skin in the game. So we worked out again, and I made it clear, I'm not an attorney, but let's talk about the business arrangements, and then we'll put you in front of an attorney. And so we sat in this room and agreed that, on day one, he would transfer the assets to them. He would own or finance. They would keep him on for a consulting period of 5 years, because he was 5 years from wanting to retire. That way he could continue to see in the business. His time commitment would graduate downward at year 2 and at year 3, 4, and then 5. And he would actually extract additional value because he would earn a 5.5% interest rate on what he was owner financing. Yeah. So everybody wins. Okay, we package that up, take that to an attorney, and that's been 2 years ago. Spoke with the guy the other day. Everyone's happy. So there are going to be tremendous opportunities there, I believe, to pass along value like that to aspiring entrepreneurs.
My company is doing a book right now for a former CTO, Bank of America. And the book is called The $68 Trillion Tsunami, because that's the actual amount of wealth transfer. The biggest wealth transfer in the history of the planet is going to happen in the next 10 years, right? So there's a lot of opportunity with guys and gals who are, hey, what am I going to
let me give you some other stats why that's important to economic developers and to folks like us. Is that if those companies are being passed down to a second generation owner, 73% of them will fail. If they're being passed down to a third generation owner, inclusive of 80% of them will fail. So you think about the number of jobs. 99% of all employers and 50% of all employees in the United States are in businesses, just like you talked about. So imagine if 75+% of those businesses transfer and ultimately fail, how many jobs are going to be lost? That is a significant economic and entrepreneurial development issue for our country.
Dramatic pause. I was really happy until that moment. Now I'm really depressed. Oh my God.
I'll give
all the money's away. All the jobs are going away. I'll get that place up in Maine. And we'll live off the land.
Here's the other, maybe a little bit more positive way to think about it. It just, so as you think about it in terms of economic development strategy, Kauffman Foundation, which is the think tank on all things entrepreneurial based in Kansas City, has said in the past that 85% of all net new jobs come from startups and small business. Okay, so that's kind of point one. Point two is if you can get them to a 5-year survival rate, then they're going to add even more high wage rate jobs. So where we fit many times is in that 0 to 5 years of life, and we try to remove those failure points so that the success is greater and so that they're going to add more jobs. Now, here's the other thing. Economic development has historically been a win-lose scenario where you're trying to attract in large companies from elsewhere into a new area. That's like trying to buy a winning lottery ticket because you're competing against everybody else, and the odds are really kind of low that you're going to attract somebody in. It's important, but it can't be the only strategy. If you build stuff local and organic, it's going to stick. That is, using the movie analogy, that's the Moneyball play. That's the increased on-base percentage that's ultimately going to allow your area to win. And that's why we thought, I mean, if you were to think of one thing that's catalytic for why we needed to do this book, it's that reason. This is an economic development, economic empowerment strategy that can change the game for a small area. One more important thing is, until just very recently, urbanization is drawing the young talent out of these smaller areas into major metros. They've got to have a reason to stay, which means you need to build businesses locally that make it an attractive place to stay. And what we talk about in Creating Startup Junkies is part of the formula for getting that done, ultimately. It's a good economic development strategy.
Hold that book up again. I want to see that book again. Folks, if you're watching this thing, this book could save our country, for God's sakes. Creating Startup Junkies. In fact, you're not allowed to buy, you need to buy 10 copies and give a bunch to your Chamber of Commerce, your other friends, and people in the business so they can get the word out.
The best 180 pages your mayor or your Chamber of Commerce or your local university will read.
Right. What is the plan to get it into the government or the business development levels?
Well, we have our forward was written by Congressman French Hill, who is our second congressional district congressman here in Arkansas, obviously in D.C. He is an entrepreneur himself, a financier and entrepreneur, has started and exited a bank. And he's, we have other connections because of the relationships we have with funding organizations. And so we're going to be putting it in the hands of key people around the country, particularly in the heartland, that we think need to read it and need to use the information and the tools that are provided. We also have it available on Kindle right now at a very promotional price. So if they want to go to Amazon and search it on Kindle, we'll be doing a book signing today virtually at 1 p.m. Central, and they can go to creatingstartupjunkies.com, creatingstartupjunkies.com, and can register for that. There's also a link directly to the book purchase page on Amazon as well. So we'd love to connect with them. And we'll be offering a number of signs. Creatingstartupjunkies.com. At the virtual book signing, we'll be offering a number of free signed copies to a limited number of people that are on the virtual book signing. So,
great. Get this book, guys. If not for yourself, for somebody else, because obviously it can make a huge difference in our world and your business and your life. So obviously, it totally makes sense on the government business development level. On individual levels, there's good stuff in there for an individual entrepreneur to do a better job or connect with people like you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As Jeff said, both and, right? The primary target audience are those that have the opportunity or the want to create an entrepreneurial culture in their respective communities, a guidebook to do that. And many times we find that it is existing entrepreneurs or serial entrepreneurs that have a vested interest in doing that and want to do that. Many times it's chambers, economic developers, mayor staff, what have you, but it's those entrepreneurs as well.
And Doug, to be real clear, to use a biological reference, the keystone species in this story are the entrepreneurs.
Right.
Nothing good happens without them. They are the keystone species. And so they need to be part of that coalition of the willing. They kind of need to be out front. You really can't autocratically mandate that thou shalt have entrepreneurship. You got to have the entrepreneurs in the mix, because ultimately they're the ones that have to do the hard work to create the businesses that are going to survive and thrive. And we both come from that entrepreneurial. We understand the need for the creative spark. The idea is to wrap that fabric of the community and infrastructure around them so that they have a greater chance of being successful.
Crops don't grow without sunshine and water and good soil. And that's what you guys are creating for the entrepreneur here, obviously. So, man, I applaud you.
Well, we're excited about it. We look forward to connecting with people of like minds who are interested in creating startup junkies.
Okay. CreatingStartupJunkies.com. You guys, I spelled it right. Good. Get this book, share it with your friends, share it with your Chamber of Commerce. And book signing today at 1 o'clock. If you're watching this on a recording, book signing's over. The website will still be up, I'm sure. Get the book.
Absolutely.
And it was great having you guys on. Thank you so much.
Doug, thank you.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
You bet.